Workshop to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Foley,
Absence, excused.
trustee Lappin,
Well, he's with us online.
so is he absent?
No, this is a workshop, so he can be just.
Clerk Palovich here. Treasurer Ellery Summers. Here. Trustee Kroll,
Here.
trustee Reiner,
Here.
supervisor Skibby.
Here. And this is. We've done that, so, yeah. So we do have I'll entertain a motion, even though this is just a workshop, and then a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
A motion on the table to approve the agenda as presented. Is there support? Support by trustee Reiner. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as is signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, oppose the same. This is the first opportunity for public comment. If there's any public comment online, which does not look to be the case, looks like all public members in this body are all employees. So there's no public at this point in time. So moving forward to the mission of this day is workshop. We are obviously in pursuit of 3 mill requests that's going on to the November ballot. And in hopes that that passes. We have to be prepared however that goes. And so that's the conversations that we have to start having. So that we're at least as poised as possible to have a sound plan moving forward. With that being said, quick way to kind of maybe keep this as kind of condensed and as direct as possible. And I'm open to all suggestions, but if we start looking at the framework of what is our mission, that could help us define what our needs and how we need to facilitate moving forward. I applaud all the members of our fire department, Chief Hanson this evening, because we want some insight from you. Because you work it. So, but anyways, we have several different ways we can look at it. What are our options? Obviously, we have a ballot request out. That's an internal option. So I look at it as keeping this conversation as clean and concise and simple as we can in this regard, as what are our options internally? What are our options external? What are any hybrid options that are out there? This is kind of a free-flowing meeting, because at this point in time, any discussion, any option should be discussed. Yeah, obviously, we're focusing towards getting a millage, but at the same time, if that millage is unsuccessful and we don't have any of these discussions in the meantime, shame on us. So that's where I'll leave it. And so I look to the board and to Chief, if there's, things that we can, no worries. There's buttons for those things.
Yeah.
So one thing I would ask, as we just kind of have this free-flowing conversation, if you will, is if you have any comments, stand to the podium so that we can actually, and anybody that is online can hear thoughts. We can, if we need, we can grab the whiteboard and start putting stuff down. I think that's kind of the framework that I see as potentially being the most efficient in having conversations. If there's any.
Bringing the whiteboard up.
Okay. Ooh, Haley's on. Thank you very much, Miss Birmingham. So to the board, how would we like to start having a conversation? We have pretty much every township member here with us. And so
I guess, what is your format for this? Is it just the board talking? Do we want?
at
is
this
it
point in
just
time,
open it up to the public,
I think,
or-
well, there's no members of public here this
Well.
evening. So it's pretty much an internalized conversation.
Well, I started off, I've got,
Stand to the podium.
just a question to start off things and, that would probably,
Good
that
job,
would start a
Pamela.
lot more conversation from the board. So obviously, Mark Hanson,
She's
Fire
ready to
Chief.
Stay off the camera.
Am I on the, okay, I don't, if I'm off the camera, that's great.
No, you're on. camera.
Okay. I guess there's a lot of discussion amongst us. Obviously, we all, like you say, want the 3 mil to pass. That would be the ultimate goal for us to do that. And we're going to take very active, proactive measures here shortly. We've got teams that are going to be going out in the neighborhoods and canvassing. That's going to start next week. We've got a bunch of different things that we're going to try to do there. I guess the question from us would be, if the millage does not pass, what is the outlook from the board's perspective of staying in business without the support of that millage? We do currently have the 1.5 mils, just like we're working off right now, till 2027. What is, I guess, I'll throw the question back at the board, or at this workshop. I'm not gonna reference you as a board tonight, okay?
Well, we are the board, but
But the workshop, what is your vision of what we're gonna look like if this millage does not pass?
I think, yeah, Michelle.
I mean, I'll just start. I don't have like a direct vision that this is the road we're going down. I think status quo, definitely an option where we keep using the 1.5 mils and contributing money from the general fund. That could be an option.
Okay.
So, but I think there's other options.
I think.
But I'm not
the
ruling
purpose,
any
so
out.
the purpose of this is actually detrimental to the question in which you ask. You want a known. What we're trying to do in this exercise is put every option on the table.
Mhm.
That,
I understand that. I
Right
just
now.
wanted to be able to start the meeting off somehow or another, because it didn't.
yeah. Well, and that's,
And I think
that is
we
really
can
the meat.
discuss different things that might save money. It's 12-hour shifts. I know people don't like that idea, but if I guess if someone said all options are on the table, maybe that would be something that would be explored if it would save money.
Okay, something that that I was going to present the board, but at a different time, is that our risk assessment manager, Mike Gombos, had sent me some cost recovery ordinances and languages from other townships. If the millage does not pass, we may consider some sort of a cost recovery per service.
I think that moves forward and that conversation moves forward with or without a millage. We're a rarity when PI in our conversation.
Right.
Can you
That's,
So-
explain exactly what that
so,
Yeah.
means?
yeah.
And by all means, our insurance man is on the line, so he'll be able to verify this as well. If we go to a structure fire, most places, not all, but most places have some sort of a homeowner's coverage for fire. And that typically, at the very least, if I'm not mistaken, and Mr. Lappin can probably verify this, it's typically a $500. You can send a $500 bill out and get reimbursed for that. Kind of like an automatic thing if they have a house fire. Vehicle accidents, you can bill insurance companies up to certain different amounts for vehicle accidents.
Do we do that currently or either or?
We don't charge for anything at this point in time. Another thing that's a real drain on our system is that all the service calls that we go on of lift assist. We've gone on, and these folks can correct me. I do believe that at least one location, we were on a lift assist 5 different times in one evening. So that's when somebody falls out of the bed, somebody falls out of the chair, we're going there to lift them. You can't lift them with one person, so you automatically have to have 2. So we're having an added expense just to make sure to be able to get this person up from wherever they're at and put them back into a safe spot. Unfortunately, sometimes they end up not in a safe spot 5 minutes later and we're
So
back.
one person, you want 5 times for one person and no one anything?
Yeah, I think it was probably up to 5 times.
so to that's how when I say internal options, that is where you can strengthen SOPs. That's an internal mechanism, and that could also be folded into what is our response to medicals? What is our response, you know, what does that look like?
So when we go on lift, is it just us or does the city have to get dispatched?
They get
too?
dispatched too. So we have duplicate services, you know, we're usually there first, but sometimes if our people hear that our one person at the station is going on a lift assist, they go because they know that you can't lift the guy by yourself or a gal typically. At least not a lot of them.
I'm not trying to act like I'm, because I don't know everything about you guys, what we all do, so. Excuse me if some of my questions sound kind of dumb, but
That's why it's a
Um,
workshop.
so if, for example. Somebody, it's like wherever this person is, they're exactly in between the city and us.
Mhm.
Do we have to go? I mean, I'm just asking, do we have to be? I mean, if we're both gonna be there at the same time.
Right.
And,
Under our personal.
I mean, I'm just asking.
Under
because I
our
don't know.
standard operating procedures for right now. That's the way that we've been running the operation. Okay, now. There's some things that could happen if we, you know, some things that I could see if we don't get this funding source. Do we really necessarily have to be responding to the nursing homes anymore? They're a licensed care facility. They're all right within the hub of the city, pretty much, or right on the outskirts of the city. Maybe that's one type of a service that we discontinue if this millage doesn't pass. I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing out different suggestions. There's no point in duplicating that service at that point.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, and not that, I'm sorry.
Well, just to piggyback, most people know that someone in my family, lives like on the city limit, but in the township, had a few calls. I will say every single time the township has been there first. So even if you are on that city line, our guys get there first, so.
Yeah, we typically have a pretty quick response. And, you know, minutes do make a difference
Right.
for sure.
Well, and when it's your loved one
People
or
say
you're
that
the
on the
one in
city.
the accident, you want somebody to get.
The city
Right.
gets there and
On that we will release the city from responding if it literally was just. on the city.
Yeah, that'll free them up to do their countywide. Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate these
Okay,
guys
so-
kicking in.
And this
Okay,
is,
I didn't know that.
So we can't
here's a
just not go
potential, what
with
does it look?
That's part of the. Because of medical protocols we operate.
So we can relieve the city and say, hey, we don't need you, we got this.
Yeah, and we oftentimes do that. So, because, you know, they're busy and tapped out like everybody else. They don't have enough resources. So if we can relieve them of that duty, see you later.
So then to that, what are those functions in terms of SOPs? Where, what are what priorities would be something that we look at? Pro or honestly, at that point in time, let's look at improving our SOPs, whether or not we're successful or unsuccessful, because we have a tremendous amount of overlap and duplicity.
Mhm.
That's been a conversation for a long time. So is there certain priority calls, or if there are certain areas that we can actually fine tune with, whether it's through med control or SOPs?
Right.
What does that look like?
Right, I mean, I don't want to, I'm going to speak, but I want other people's opinions in this as well. That's why I had them come, you know. If the millage passes, we can, you know, we can still keep providing that same level of service or advance our service level to a different level and give a better product in the end, better training, better response.
When you say a better service, like, because right now, we go back to EMT,
That would be a start. I mean, that would be a
because
start.
we've historically tried the paramedic thing and it failed miserably.
Mhm.
And that was before 2016. And it was actually kind of phased out in 2016. When at that point in time, Chief Osborne,
Can you clarify that? You covered.
no, it was actually implemented in the app, if I can actually speak. Mr. Jones,
Going for paramedic has never been something that's really
It was-
discussed that much.
it may not have been discussed, but it was in the application packet all the way until 2016.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of thrown around.
It was in the formal I know, I can see your.
Well, before we get off track,
fire
we're
response.
not there yet.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, and that's why I'm.
We
saying
are
that.
MFR level, but as we get new staff on, we train the staff and get them up to speed and everybody's on the same page. I can see us going back to, at the very least, the EMT basic level. And then it gives us a little bit more opportunity to do some different things and provide a little bit better care. Jim can actually, if you want to know the specifics of that, or Jim or Chris, either one of them, or Abby for that matter, can tell you all the differences that the EMT would be able to do over the first responder. But when we regrouped here, I guess last September, we had to do something because we were in trouble. So
Yeah.
now we're gaining membership. We've got some great instructors on our staff now that are helping the process grow. And I only see that positive things are going to come from that. However, like we all know, all that progress takes money. And if we don't get the money, well, then here we are. These are the things that I'm kind of trying to say. If we don't get the money, maybe we have limited responses on certain medical calls. Maybe we only do priority 1 and 2 calls. Maybe we don't do those lift assists, or if we do those lift assists, maybe there's a slight charge that goes with it after we've been there the second or third time. It ever depends what this board decides, because I mean, I could say, hey, I want to
Well,
charge
and
for
we-
that.
And we look to you as chief to be laying this out for the board to
Mhm.
interpret and make those decisions. I
Sure.
mean, we're having this free and open conversation,
Right.
but we hired you to give us some of those recommendations.
Sure. I would be happy to give you these recommendations based on what I've received from Mr. Gambos and Michigan Townships and all the folks that are currently charging. I think that's the first step. If the millage doesn't pass, that we need to take.
Well, I think that is definitely, I've written it down. We've had that conversation of that cost recovery, but that doesn't change structure. That doesn't look at any of what is getting back to what is our mission. We could look at a mission of pro millage, or what is our mission if mission or the millage doesn't pass. But I think that you threw it up there quick.
I would like to rope Mr. Kroll and Mr. Lappin back in from our ad hoc. Because what I heard you start this meeting out.
Can I suggest, just before you,
Yep.
just so people can hear online, can we just pass the mic? Do you want to pass the mic or have them go up there?
Just
Thank
go
you.
up there.
Okay, well, just so we can,
Nope.
they can hear.
You're good. But I want to rope Cash and Steve back into this for the hours on that ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
You're asking for options. I know that we pretty much went through exhaustive options all the way from completely disbanding to the 12 hours to paid on call to multitude of different things. And I was trying to find that, and I can't readily find it in this stack of paperwork from those.
Well,
But Cash or Steve chime in and help with, because if that's what you're looking for to start out with is just what options, what potentials are there, we really have already created that.
Well, and then that's the problem inherent, is when an ad hoc committee goes through that process and doesn't share it with the board. So I'm asking questions when, if he does have that knowledge, it hasn't been communicated to the board. So-
I'm here to tell you,
So-
that we
Well,
did.
wonderful.
I apologize if it wasn't, you and I didn't talk about that. So it's not like I would turf it to you, but however, there was. So I think that.
And that's great. If you have it, then we don't need to recreate the wheel. But yes, Mr. Lappin.
Yes, we definitely talked about that. In fact, I specifically talked about, I think, 5 options, and then I broke that down into potential subsections within those 5 options. And as Bev had said, it ranged from not providing any fire services or emergency services whatsoever, all the way through to creating a authority of some sort, to outsourcing this to a for-profit fire department. So yeah, we definitely talked about all of these options. And we quickly moved away from those. But what might be worth talking about is what do those options look like in real application? What does a township with no fire services or emergency services to its 9,000 constituents look like? To me, it looks bad. It looks bad for a variety of reasons, anywhere from slowing economic growth to insurance costs going up, which, by the way, I would like to speak a little bit about the recovery process. And so we also talked about looking at an authority, which somewhere along the line, I certainly believe that is worthwhile discussing. As Chief had indicated, the city has its issues with personnel. The township struggles with it. Each municipality in Alpena County, and for that matter, across the country, struggle with it. I will tell you, by way of example, there is as some of you know, I'm out in California right now, and there is a Prop 27, I think it is, out here that is asking the people to fund, among other things, fire departments and personnel and equipment as a statewide initiative. And so this is not new, not to Alpena Township at all. It is across the country. And so getting back to the charter, not charter, but getting back to the authority, if we went in that direction, which would be a process that would take some degree of time, that would begin to perhaps solve other issues that other municipalities are currently faced with. Can't do it overnight. It's certainly worth talking about. And so trying to outsource to a not-for-profit fire department doesn't mean that we don't have funding. We would have to fund it in some fashion. That current funding that we have would essentially go to the not-for-profit, or it would go to the authority. And so there are definitely options, but as I said, when we talk about these options, I believe it's prudent of us to look at the pros and cons associated with each one of those options. That's why the ad hoc committee, basically from the onset, once we established basically those 5 pillars of opportunity, we looked at and chose to have the fire department have its own fire department, not only for the current, but also for the long term, because we can't look at a fire department for months at a time. We have to look at the fire department in years, not days, weeks, or months.
So cost recovery, since you still are on a roll, could you touch on the cost recovery?
So there is, keep in mind that many insurance policies will provide coverage as it would perhaps relate to mutual aid. Not all of them, some will just simply pay it up to a certain threshold. Chief is right, it's typically $500 under say a homeowner's policy. But as it relates to automobiles, that's a completely different animal. We could bill the providers with whatever our cost of recovery would be. It would be prudent to have it in the form of an ordinance, in fact, necessary to have it in the form of an ordinance. But if that person who has a fire or some other water damage or some other emergency services that we need to respond to, and if they don't have either renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance, it does not relieve them of that obligation under the ordinance. It means that we have a collection issue. And so the township needs to either recognize that we have this ordinance in place, and there will be times where we may have to charge off an expense because somebody does not have the ability to pay, or or just bill the insurance carrier. It really does get to be that simple. Many municipalities do this. I don't know if the city does or any of the outlying townships do, but it is a fairly simple process relative to the lift assists. Yeah, I don't believe that we should be in the business of I want to make sure I say this properly without sounding crass, but certainly we have a duty and an obligation to service the people. But that doesn't mean that a person has the right to abuse that privilege, and that if there is an opportunity for us to write an ordinance or put something in the SOPs that allow us to provide for example, a lift assist twice, and then after that, it's a ratcheting fee.
Mr. Lappin, if I might just add real quick, for the next, not this upcoming board meeting, but the October board meeting, I would be happy to provide the board with a list of different proposals that I've received from Mr. Gambos and sample ordinances and all the different things that probably could go with cost recovery if need be. And I'd be happy to do that. I've got that.
Well, yeah, fine tune it. Let's not recreate the wheel, but that's supplementary. That's just one little
Do you think,
avenue of, Yeah.
that's something that should be, that I should first come before the fire committee? So kind of have an idea before it comes to the board? Would that help the legwork on this process, or?
really, if you already have Mike Gambos giving you an MTA derived ordinance, make it site specific to the Charter Township of Alpena. When you feel that you have that complete, then we push it through review by legal and put it in the format, and we move forward.
I guess if my direction is do we do that either way, or do we wait until the outcome of a millage? Do we want to try and?
Either way,
I think you do it either way.
either way.
I mean, you hope for the best, but when you also have to look at the strategy of it. Like you said, you had an instance where you have an individual that's too heavy, no paid on calls. Now you have both stations dumped for a lift assist. Not ideal.
Right.
In the middle of the night, you're not gonna call somebody to come in and backfill.
Right.
So
So
how do you maintain structural integrity of our departments when one house is dumped? You gotta be able to prepare to respond, and I know you guys do, but Russ, did you?
I'd like to ask Steve a question. Steve, can you hear me?
I sure can.
So what is you said $500 on a structure? I don't know if that includes barns and outbuildings, but up to $500, you said, in the coverage amounts. Would it include someone who negligently causes a fire to spread across the forested or field area that we have to go fight?
Oh, sure. And that $500, that will vary from insurance carrier to insurance carrier.
actually, I can answer that probably a little bit better than he can.
Okay.
From a wildfire perspective, if it is a ticketed item, we can go for restitution for our services.
Which is above and beyond a flat insurance
That's correct.
covered fee.
But we would have to have an ordinance established to do so,
And then we would have to have an attorney that would go out and collect it in court.
or some sort of bill collecting
Mhm.
entity. Yeah.
So
Sorry.
$500 per structure then would amount to 7 to 10 structure fires a year, I believe, is our average.
Yeah, something like
So
that,
$5,000.
roughly. I mean, at least it'll recover the cost of fuel and.
It's not a solution, but it's a stopgap measure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like many other states, even with traffic tickets nowadays, and Ohio is one of the best.
Get your credit card out.
You better pull out your wallet, and if you don't have cash, they know exactly where the next ATM is.
Right.
And you're not leaving that state till you pay that ticket.
Sounds like personal experience to me.
I would like to add one quick thing on the ordinance, on the comments. Without regard, you should have the ordinance in place irregardless. It just is, it is a necessary thing. Without that ordinance, many insurance policies simply will not pay because it wasn't their contractual obligation to do so. So make the ordinance
But we're
mandatory.
talking
So-
about two ordinances,
Right.
right? One for
Well,
wildfires.
what I will
and one
do-
For structures, is that?
No, it's,
one.
it's
Just
just,
be
it's
one.
just a service ordinance.
I'll get with Mr. Gambos. We'll fine tune this and I'll bring it to the board in October to
Well,
review.
before I even get that far, let's do legal review. I mean, if there's already examples from MTA, I mean, all it is changing literally charter township about. people,
Exactly,
What
yeah.
our license status is, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get it in place and have it on the agenda for October.
Sure.
That's a given.
And I don't want to beat up a certain subject because some of our folks and I kind of asked them if we could have a general note taker. If somebody's got questions, I would just throw them at the board and obviously we're kind of doing the what ifs, like if the millage doesn't pass, is there an opportunity that we could, obviously, we just talked about charge for services, special assessment, some other form of funding through the general fund like it's been going on. What kind of options do we have out there?
Kind of options are you bringing to us? That's the thing. I mean, this is the conversation. Well, I mean, we look to you as fire chief to give us some options.
Mhm. Well, right now, our option is to go out and beat feet as much as we can.
And I don't
To try to
disagree.
get a millage passed.
Well, exactly. And we're all on that. The board it pushed that direction and that's a given. But if we don't start talking about any option other than A, come November 7th, I know if we don't talk about things, good, bad, or ugly, between now and then, shame on all of us for not thinking, how can we, what does it look like?
Mhm.
Yes.
I think through this whole process, I mean, I have notes since I've been on the fire committee of the pros and the cons, and then what we had just talked about, if it passes, if it doesn't pass. I think bottom line is no matter what scenario we come up with, it needs to be, and how does this affect our public? How does this affect our residents? Because this is what it's all about. So whatever it is, that has to be our main goal and our site, because that's who it's gonna affect.
Right. Well, ultimately, I mean, we want to provide the best service we can to them for the money they're paying. And if they're going to
That's-
pass the millage, then we got to be careful of what we're going to look at cost recovery, because they're going to be expecting that service. But those different things such as chimney fires, structure fires, vehicle accidents, things that we can, and most fire departments in the state typically bill for, we need to be on board with that same.
One other thing I'd like to say is, I mean, I'm just gonna say it because, obviously we did have a proposal from the city, and people are still confused because they're not, it hasn't been properly explained, the contract that we were proposed with, of the details of that contract. The average public person thinks, well, why would you pay, 1.2 million when you can pay 450,000? I mean, what's the matter with you? We need to understand what that proposal was compared to what rebuilding our fire department would be. People need to be educated.
Right. And let me tell you, that's where I lie at a deficit, because I was no part of that conversation. Okay. So I haven't had somebody lay out the Holy Grail Bible for me to show me every step of the way on that. So I can only go off of hearsay and what I know, just in general conversation, prior to me coming on as a fire chief. As I look at this organization from my perspective, when I came here, we were broke, busted, and we didn't have any direction. And we may still not have a clear direction on which way we're headed. We're trying to do that amongst our own staff and point a direction in which way we would like to go. But we haven't seen that direction from the board. I know I'm your fire chief and I'm supposed to lay a plan. I will lay a plan, but I need a board support to make that action happen.
Can I help with that?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sitting here and I'm digesting digesting what we're talking about. So I guess what I would expect is a little clarity, because I've heard some talk about what our services are going to be, and then I've also heard some talk about funding. So I think what as a board that needs to happen is there's some decisions in one category, even though they are very interwoven, because the services are very dependent on what your funding is going to be. So however you as the board, and I mean, I can't make that decision. That's up to you and supervisor guide. With the fact is, do you make the decision on what the funding is going to be first, period? And then there is not a doubt in my mind that this department can't come up with whatever those services are going to look like once you concretely say, boom, this is the amount of money that you have. So you got services, you got funding. Now, are there other, he just laid out 4 different options for you of different things of funding. So the charge for service, the special assessment that you
Well,
you
it's-
as a
A
board can
special
assign.
assessment is a slippery slope.
I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
not. I'm just, you asked for options. Did you not ask for
It
options?
is,
I'm giving you
I wrote it
options.
down
Yeah.
with a smiley face
I'm not,
after it. I was better with the ordinance.
you know, I'll tell you straight up, I already know it's political suicide. Okay, so I mean, it is what it is.
Having conversations that involve fire departments could also be put under that same category, but they're conversations nonetheless.
But
I mean, that's-
but I think the bottom line is you got to decide, are you going to fund it, and how do you want to see it funded? And then that is really dependent on what services that are going to be able to be provided.
So easy enough. We have a 1.5 operating millage. We're not operating within that millage. We're actually, was it about 300,000? Well,
Well,
we
200
reduced the ancillary rental square footage things in the budget. But what is out of general fund?
240,000.
Roughly 240,000. So yeah, right there, there's your framework in terms of funding as is.
So let me
So to answer Bev's question, there's one funding mechanism and the as is. And now you have another option, millage is successful. Now you have 4.5 mils.
Right.
What are the options? that
But
look out
I guess
with
that's
that?
what I guess what I needed the clarification on is what you're saying is if this millage is unsuccessful, then it is the bottom line is you're looking at, you don't want to take anything out of general fund and you want it to just function off that 1.5 millage. Is that what I hear?
I don't think you're hearing that.
Okay. thank you. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, but help me if
But
that's,
that's Michelle's standpoint.
But this is like
Okay, eventually-
I'm 1 out of 7.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
And it could be
In
the
my-
1.5 or the 1.5 plus
It could be,
200,000.
but maybe only 200,000 or maybe,
Right.
300,000. I don't know. I
That's
think
fluid.
that it's something that would happen during budgeting. And I'm hoping the millage passes, but if it doesn't, I feel we will start working on our budget early November. So we will have a concrete number of how much is going to be funded in the fire department. So we can know what services we can provide. You asked, I mean, I don't think we can determine what services we can provide until we know what the funding is.
That's the whole challenge right there.
So,
So let me ask this quick question. Prior to the inception of the 1.5 mils and obviously the 0.65 request for equipment, prior to that ever coming into our funding source, was the general fund the sole provider of money to run the fire department?
I'm sure historically that would be an accurate statement, but
Okay.
we also, if we want to talk about history, let's go back to the 1950s. How did it start? Was there a foundation and was there because I think that's really, at least at some of my core, what is the mission of this fire department? It started because of a disagreement, boom. And then this kind of snowballed and grew, but it was a big house with no foundation.
Yeah, actually,
And so it's, what is the
according
foundation?
to you reading the minutes, it was in 1955 that happened.
and you can read the minutes from 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're having the same discussions we're having today.
Yeah,
Identical.
identical.
We had to read the minutes for
So, I
35
mean,
years.
with that being said, it's time to change it, move forward. I
Yeah,
think.
well, that was my premise. What is the mission? Because if we can identify a mission, then everything else, we know we have the economic drivers of status quo, if you will, just 1.5, an option of 1.5 with a variable general fund contribution, or actually 4.5. Those are your three economic drivers.
And you have a
So-
mission statement, right?
Well, I'm going to present that to the fire committee. I was going to put it in this month's board report, but I thought it should go before the fire committee first. Mr. Lappin will be back first part of October. I'll have it for the next, the board meeting is what my hoping, that we'll have a new mission and a new visions and values to operate by. And, hopefully get something, going in that direction. Looks like Mr. Ginter would like to chat.
Yeah.
Could I just comment on what you said?
Sure.
You can still put a board report. We'd all like to see it. You know, we won't vote on it until it comes back to the committee.
If the Madam Secretary says I can still add it.
I'm not Madam Secretary. That's great.
You got a free seat here, right?
Okay, Mr. Reinhardt, I will certainly.
Get it to me
Steve
like
Alexander.
by 8:30 tomorrow morning.
I'll
Because,
send it to you when I get back.
okay, perfect.
Mr. Ginter?
Go ahead.
I've always sort of considered from my perspective, ever since this conversation got started, and Laura kind of touched on it a little bit, and Steve kind of touched on it a little bit, and you probably touched on it maybe, or maybe you decided mission was the right word. My elephant in the room is, as an elected official and responsible for the health and welfare of each community member, what is the service level that you want to commit to? And then, so instead of chasing the dollars and then working backwards into the service level, why don't you have a discussion or an agenda for what service level you want to do? And then the rest of it kind of falls into place, or like Steve brought up, well, if we don't have people available and we're gonna go all paid on call, that's gonna look kind of ugly at a lot of instances. But if you decide that that service level is acceptable, then it's acceptable, and we just live with the staffing and response times and the bad press or whatever that comes from. Because I've kind of learned over the years that when there's not a lot of fires or emergency responses needed, nobody really wants to pay for anything. But once somebody has a fire at their house, now everybody wants a fire truck in their driveway. So my point is that decide what the service level is, and you can talk about that in terms of whether or not the millage passes or not, and then go to the negative side of, well, I guess I'm
I
looking at
think
it
we
as a
already
negative.
did that though, Kevin.
That's what I
We've
was
already
thinking.
done that. We've already determined what service level we want.
I've never heard
No, no, no.
anyone
And
once
that's-
say
and
what that
that's
is.
Came up with the millage language that we did to come up with an amount of what we want to ask for to pass a
But
millage.
then at the same time, if it doesn't pass, then is all paid on call, all volunteer?
That's what we're
is-
talking about. in
Is
these
that acceptable?
workshops.
But I think the answer is sort of apparent. Because
What answers a parent?
will you continue down the funding and staffing path for the past 50 years? You continue to have full-time people available, you continue to have paid on call responding.
But
That's
Kevin, you
nothing
gotta
different.
start with the funding. You've got to start with the funding is the way I see it. I might like a 5,000 square foot house, but maybe I can only afford a 1,500 square foot house. I've got to figure out where the money's coming from before I can get the 5,000 square foot house.
That part is true, and I don't disagree with a part of your analogy, but when you've already provided a service that looks kind of like it does right now, if you were to turn that into a all volunteer with maybe a part-time chief or a all paid on call with a part-time chief, that animal is going to look way different than it is right now. So to me, it's all about deciding the service level, which apparently you have, but you haven't with well, let's commit to, if that doesn't pass, then we're gonna go. We're gonna go do the 1.5 millage, and then we're gonna do general fund supplement.
That would be an option. That's what we're doing right now.
I mean, I think we're talking just about options. I don't think,
Yeah.
I have nothing in stone
No,
in my head. I mean, what does it look like if we went to one station 24 hours, the other station 12-hour shifts? I don't know. I don't even know if that's an option.
I think
But-
it's, in my mind, that's always been apparent, because you're reducing, that's where the service level comes in. If you only have one station
But we don't-
available 24 hours, their response time, the whole reason the city of Alpena option didn't work, because you don't have the best interests of the public at hand in something that you've been funding for. The IFF has been part of Alpena Township for 50+ years. Then all of a sudden, something doesn't work. I mean, in my mind, it doesn't make sense.
Well, and that's, I guess, what has kind of re-solidified some of those conversations is the foundation hasn't been in place since it started. These same conversations every decade. I mean, almost verbatim, because I'd hear as through an FOIA it, as they're going through minutes. So the problem's been since its inception. And so to me, if there's been a problem since its inception, it's not a staff problem. It's what is the foundation? What is our centric mission? And obviously that's going to be forthcoming. But it's in all the minutes that I've read, it's always the same topics. And so
So you
if
just,
we're just regurgitating the same thing, we're not improving upon it. So improve upon it, because you get to that core thing. What is the best service we can give our residents?
No, it's not what's the best you can give them, it's what you will not accept less than. What is the importance of, what is the importance of having law enforcement?
the
law
undersheriff.
enforcement guy, like, okay, we're just gonna have a guy work a couple hours a day. Holy crap, 3 people got shot last week and a bunch of businesses got broken into. I mean, it sounds ludicrous sort of, but at the same time, my proposal or thing I would implore you to look at is, or make a public statement in support of, is that we care for your safety, we want the best for you. Obviously, we know we can't afford 3 or 4 full-time guys in each station 24 hours a day. But what we've been doing in the past is providing what we do right now. And then to say, or tell the public that this is how important this is. We don't want, we might not have to, but we might have to go to all paid on call or all volunteer response. And you guys would go, yeah, we don't like that. That's terrible. That puts the public at a huge risk.
That's why we want the public to support the millage.
Yeah. Nathan, you made up one word that really keyed to me when you said it, was foundation. Okay. That, from my perspective, is where we need to build in the foundation. I can't have a vision of what my fire department's going to look like if I don't have the foundation, the founding fathers, if you will, the board saying, this is what you've got to work with. I can build you any fire department you want here. I will do that, but that takes money. We all know that. But creating that foundation, I really think needs to have to come from the board with the support of the board before I can give you all kinds of my visions on what I want to do and try to do this and try to do that. But if the foundation doesn't accept that mortar that I'm trying to throw at it, it's not going to stick. So then I kind of feel like maybe I'm just kind of spinning my wheels, if you will. But if I have a clear foundation and a path that this board wants me to carry out, I can get this department built up to whatever you want it to look like. Or, and it's something that Kevin kind of touched on. We've been providing this service since 1955, not completely the same look, but we've been providing this to township residents since 1955. If we go and change that now, and we've heard lots of comments to the community, either way, okay? We've had a lot of people say that they want to keep their fire department. Okay, well, show us that's a really important thing for you and support this millage. Maybe we're just not delivering the message properly, how desperate we really are for the funds. Because we are continually taking money out of the general fund, and that's making other programs in the community suffer, or the lack of. We understand that. But as your leader of the fire department, if I don't have a clear foundation and a vision from this board, I can give, and I've shared a lot of my visions with my staff right here. Is that not the truth? That we would like to build this thing to make you proud of it.
One comment I would just like to make off of that is, I get what you're saying, but I'm not an expert in fire departments. So I look to you guys as the professionals of what this foundation, what your vision is.
Right. Well,
Because I'm not,
Laura, I'm going to stand right here and tell you, I don't know everything there is to know about fire departments. I do know that I need some extra help. We talked about that. We talk about that all the time, but we can't do that without the funding source. But I'm surrounding myself with good people. These people are smart people. I mean, we have certified 2 instructors. We can train our own people. We can take care of our own mess now. We don't have to rely on anybody else. With this staff of people that we've got right here, we can instruct. We can, in fact, I just got another instructor in the group. I'm going to bring you his certificates to put in his training file. That's the kind of thing we're trying to build here. We want to be self-sustainable, and we received a grant for FEMA for training funds that will help things out, and we can continue to grow here, but we need to have a solid base, whether it's millage funded, partially millage funded with assistance of the general fund, assessed, bill for service. I'm just throwing all those things out there because we want to give you the best end product, but we can't give that to you unless you are our anchor.
But we can't get there without the millage.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, take it right now.
And I think everybody's feeling it now, the cost to do business in 1955 is not the same as it is in 2022. So we have a lot of hurdles to overcome, and unfortunately, the township, the board itself, cannot funnel everything out of the general fund into the fire department like it used to. The cost of everything has gone up, every service. And we service a way larger community than we did then. We have growth, there's growth coming. So a lot depends on us having a good fire department. I don't think there is no knock against any of our employees. We have wonderful employees, but it's like, how do we get there? And if we lose this opportunity to get a millage, or it doesn't pass, we have to do what we can. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I'm not saying that the board's not going to contribute something to it, because we have to.
Right.
The safety of our citizens comes first. But is it going to look the same as it is today? No.
Right. Well, I just want to convey this. I mean, we will walk through the fiery gates if we have good foundation. We will do that.
So by foundation, I guess I'm not sure what
Us.
you mean by that.
The board.
The board.
So you want
So-
support from the board?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's critical.
Well, yeah, and
And you have support.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Chris.
The entire, or need to come together and pick, we voted on it,
Yeah.
we need support from the entire board.
Yeah,
And I agree.
And I don't disagree, Mr. Stevens, but Mr. Lappin had his hand up for a little while.
Sorry.
The only comment that I want to make is, and I believe that we have to stop dancing around some of these things. We should get to a place where we can tell these rather important people in the room that we have their back and that we do want to provide these services, and we will look for any means that we can to provide these services and move from there. The one thing that I would like to bring up, and it's politically very unpopular, but we have the ability to do it, I believe, and that is to, as a charter township, we can amend our millage our numbers that we have, what, up to 5%, up to 5 mils, I believe it is. I know it's very, very unpopular. I get that, but it really goes to the seriousness of this issue. If we operate, if we continue
Steve,
to.
can you explain that better, just so everybody understands what that means?
Yeah.
I don't know if they
So
understand what
a
that
charter
means.
township by its, the public act can actually, without a vote of the general populace, push a 5 mil increase.
So
I will tell you unequivocally, I would never push that on our residents.
I can say I wouldn't. either.
I would also say, I know where you're coming from. You want the board to be in one direction.
I just wanted to.
I also want to counter that and say, if we don't look at what the voting results are and at least put our finger on that pulse and have these conversations that we're trying to have, we can hope that the millage passes. If it doesn't, and we don't have these conversations in the meantime, we're that much further behind. So it's not that we're not in support of, we do have great staff. I see that, man. I love the smell of them. When I'm like, there's my pine sol.
Which one?
Pine sol.
No. I want to smell.
He gets it done. I mean, I see from where 2 years ago in November, I see a change. And it wasn't even then, it wasn't staff. We have a broken system. We don't have a foundation. And it wasn't the board. It's been a rift that was the board v township fire department. It's not that, stop making it. You want to have a unification? It's on both fronts, because it's not just the board. It's everybody in this room.
You're absolutely correct. And we're here, this is a new crew. We're here
Oh,
for
yeah.
our part.
I mean, I got an award. I mean,
Yeah, Ginter gave Nathan an award.
I still have it. Yeah,
No, I just want to say, during our canvassing,
no, I did.
I
And that's why I still have it, Mr. Ginter.
during our canvassing, we were out there knocking on doors for the first millage that we tried to pass. We had overwhelming amount of people tell us that they want a fire department. They don't trust the board because they were getting conflicting reports from the board on which way they were going. That 3 to 4 split was never talked about or made to the public's known that now the entire board is on the side of pushing this millage and making it happen. They still believe there's a 3 to 4 split.
And there may be, that's
Well, that
that's
doesn't
the
help
hard.
right there. There may be, you
But-
need to pick a direction.
But-
Business
but-
101, the board sets the direction of the township.
And when you,
That's the foundation.
and Chris,
Sorry,
everybody,
in my debate voice, sorry.
and it's okay. We're having a conversation. This isn't an argument with you against us. This is, we know we have a funding detriment.
Mhm.
What changes would happen if we're successful? What changes need to happen no matter what? And what changes would need to be made if this is unsuccessful? Because if we as a board don't look at, it was a 4-3 vote. True, could have been 4-3 the other way too. I can't tell trustee Kroll or any other board members how to vote. That is just is what it is. So how do you educate? That's one thing that we learned over the past few years is there's a threshold of education, whether it's medical licensures and what that actually means. The point is, we have options internal, and we have to look at every option. And that's the whole point. Sorry, I'm at a deficit that we don't have all the notes from the ad hoc committee and what was discussed at that. So I'm not trying to recreate the conversation wheel. I just wasn't part of it.
It is, it's in the board minutes.
Of,
The different
Yes, the
options.
whole board meeting.
Yeah, there was a whole handout.
Yes, sir. It was presented to you.
I am glad to hear that you guys are gonna be out knocking on doors next week, because by the time for the August election, you actually got out there. We had so many absentee ballots already sent out, and at least half of our people vote absentee. We've got people coming in now wanting their ballots. So within a week, those ballots are be going out, and if you haven't hit those people, or those people are already leaving to go to Florida and Arizona.
Right.
So I think we missed. some
And
people.
we,
They could have changed the voting.
we fully understand what you're saying there. As Mr. Lappin will be able to tell you, we kind of had a funding issue to getting that propaganda, if you will, to go out and talk to people. It's nice to have something that, as you're walking up to their door, to hand them, showing our cause, with our hands being tied of not being able to use any township funds or be in my uniform or do, you know, we all know the regulations there. It kind of put a time constraint on us having things printed. I mean, we hit it hard as best we could. In the areas that we hit the hardest, the precinct won. So
And
I
it
don't
was
know.
only 45% to 50%. So,
It was dang close.
And the
So
other
it
ones were
was,
very
you
close.
know,
I mean,
100 votes would have.
yeah, I mean,
I think, if I may, please, I think what we need to do is, we need to still establish a yes or no sort of mentality. As far as the foundation is concerned, we know at the fire committee, and I know the board knows, that there are issues beyond just sort of fire safety issues. There are structural issues, there are personnel issues, there are equipment issues. There's an entire gambit of issues that fall into this, to say nothing of the cost of the hourly wages. We talked about all of those sorts of things at the fire committee, and I believe we should make more of an effort at the board level during board meetings to be sure to outline those needs. It isn't just because we want more money. That's not the real issue. It's because we've kicked this can down the road so far that it's finally come home, and we've got deteriorating buildings, we've got insufficient structures, we have all these issues that have come home to roost, and we are not doing as good a job. I commend the folks that have been out canvassing and getting that word out, because it truly was effective when you start looking at the areas that they spoke in. It had an impact, and so we as a board need to do a better job at our board meetings to discuss the deficiencies that frankly, not only the fire department has, but that the township in general has. We know that we have uncontrollable costs at this point, and hopefully we can get those under control. But we can control our cost of doing business with the fire department if that millage is passed. There was a comment that was made by one of the trustees that they felt that there wasn't enough information on the budgeting, and I, as you know, I wholeheartedly disagreed with that. Those numbers were looked at through a microscope. But what I find interesting is going back to Laura's comment about the city contract or agreement. Not one thing did we see that broke down what that $400,000 was, but yet we jumped on board. It doesn't seem reasonable that a $1.2 million fire department can be run for $400,000. It doesn't make sense, and therefore it can't be possibly done that way. So I think we do need to educate the public more that when you get stuck on 400,000 versus 1.1, it's pretty easy to go, well, why would you spend? Why would I want to give you $700,000 more? Well, here's why, and delineate it better.
right, with just our
Couldn't
limited.
agree with that more. What is that variance? Because that's what's, I think, stuck in a lot of people. You
Sure.
had an offer at 500 or less thousand.
Michelle,
So when they have that in their head, and
Well-
then we're pushing a millage expansion, we gotta, that's that gap. What are they getting for what services?
so
Whether it's an increase or maintaining because of escalating inflationary costs. What is it? I mean,
basically, just
That's
from our
exactly
staff,
my-
just
That's exactly my point. is that when we have clear numbers that we can show on a spreadsheet as to what it costs. And then there's just this, what appears to be an arbitrary number without any supporting documentation whatsoever. But that's a better deal. So if I go into a used car lot and somebody says I can buy that car for $2,000, and then once I agree to it and they say, do you want an engine with that? And do you want some tires?
Let's not use any analogy about vehicles.
Yeah. So just looking at, I mean,
But you understand my point.
Yeah.
The hidden cost of doing business, that's my point. And if there's one thing that we have not done is disguised the cost of doing business. We can show on a spreadsheet exactly what that millage means and how it's broken down to held down as low as an electric bill.
right. I mean, we're looking at a $440,000 staffing cost just currently at the level of pay that we're at, just for our township. So I'm with you, Steve. I try to find out how would they be able to provide that service and encompass all the things that are on our spreadsheet for expenses and make that work. So I 100% agree with you.
It's easy, they can't.
Does anybody
Yeah, I mean,
else have
this is,
anything?
I mean, we don't want to take up the whole evening. So I
No,
mean,
I-
I think we'll get together again and have more conversations at some point.
I mean, first off, I mean,
I do, one more thing,
Yeah.
I
Because we have
apologize.
just over a month.
right. First off, it was a great idea to have this and I just to reach out back and forth between, across the hall, if you will. Everybody kind of wants to know, and a lot of my full-time staff are like, geez, what's the certainty of our position? What are we looking at for our career? So those are some of the things that I'm sure they'll probably ask if they.
I think that's. Is there? I honestly think that is the real elephant in the room. Is there going to be, Chris and I have had this conversation daily for 2 years. We had another baby. Is there going to be a job? Is there not going to be a job? Is there going to be insurance? Am I going back to work full time? And as Steve just said, that arbitrary number that the city threw out there was not feasible. And yet 3 people still chose to support that at that time. And I think that the voters, the township, everybody wants to know, hey, you know what? We were wrong about that. Let's move forward. But yet it's still kind of been crickets from everybody.
Well, so the way I look at it, whatever, so say it doesn't pass. There's obviously gonna be some change, and I think there are options where we can step back. No matter what it is, it's gonna be a loss of a service, but maybe we go to a 12-hour shift with one station. Or we operate both stations and we're only covering 12 hours. Maybe, but we're gonna have to probably change a lot of things.
So if that's the direction that collectively is a very likely option, I think that needs to be expressed to the public. If the millage doesn't pass, this is realistically what we're looking at. We're going to have to cut staffing, cut service, cut whatever, because we can't fund it. Like, I think that a lot of the public still thinks, well, we'll figure it out somehow, but they don't have a real grasp of what the cost is, what the millage is really going for. I know you guys broke it down, but I think that is really accurate, that people still don't really understand.
Well, I think even
what
if you did a
it is.
12-hour and you only covered peak hours, I think we still need the staff that we have now currently, because there's no other way to cover it.
Right.
The worst option after that is just going strictly paid on call.
Will you shut that door, chief? I think it just hit a perfect spot. My retina.
What's that?
We can move over.
I
Right.
want-
So
I wanna-
what he's saying is, if we cut hours, right, then that would look like, in my eyes, that the full-time staff is losing hours. So what does that mean? They're losing hours? Are they gonna lose benefits? Are the non-full-time staff gonna pick up those hours and work them without benefits?
You mean like going to like 40-hour week?
Right,
80 hour?
there's so many things that go with that. I mean, I think a lot of us have worked other places besides Alpena, so we have kind of a background of what it really looks like in the real world. If you're gonna cut to 12 hours or cut hours, however, are you prepared to then pay a night shift premium? Is there gonna be a weekend shift premium? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that.
Yeah,
And
and
these
there's
are
a
all
lot of,
conversations that
Right.
we're
Well, and you
willing to,
guys
like,
have been open about saying, you know what, we don't really know the things, because that's not your job, that you don't do this job. You're not out on the street, you're not in the ambulance, in the fire truck, whatever.
So,
Yeah.
I guess I would be looking to our chief. Just for no other place to start is with the budget we currently have. What does it look like? What services could we provide?
Well, I guess everything's on the table, like, if. Really think that we need to start doing that cost recovery, that's gonna be a big help.
I just don't think that's gonna be a huge.
that's maybe $5,000.
The actual reason I wanted to come up here was to talk about that. I previously worked for a service that was scraping the bottom of the barrel for funds, and they discussed doing some kind of a recovery thing. And like you guys were talking about the lift assist and stuff. And I think that's like a really slippery slope. As far as you're providing a service to the public, you're providing it to the township, and now you're asking them, hey, well, if you call so many times, you're gonna have to pay extra for that. And I think that's a really terrible decision. I mean, personally, that goes just against my morals. I don't think that's a good idea.
I agree with you.
On top of that, I can attest, I've been on multiple calls for multiple patients who clearly didn't have the money to pay that. So now you're putting out this ordinance, you're doing whatever, saying, well, if you call 5 times, now you're paying. Well, that patient, you're either telling them they have to somehow come up with that funds, or you're telling them you don't call 911 because you can't pay for it, which is very dangerous. And I would,
I agree, because I think
Very
we'll have
highly
people
recommend.
who lay there on the floor all night.
Right,
waiting for
and I've seen
someone
that
to come because they
happen, and I
don't want
think-
to call.
right, and I think a lot of us have seen that happen, and that's the reality of it. It might look good on paper, but realistically, if your mom falls and, she slipped, well, this is the second time today. Now she's gonna lay there for how long? Till tomorrow, because she already called twice today? There's as healthcare, right, standard of care as healthcare, right? So when you get into.
And
those
lift
discussions-
assist, but I mean, so let's frame it. Is it something that has more substantial agreement if you look at it in a PIA scenario? Because I don't know. I mean, there again, I mean, when we
I think
have,
it's slippery no matter
I-
what.
I think so too.
The standard across the nation though, and Mr. Gombos was the one that gave me the information.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of departments are recovering for vehicle accidents and structure type fires, because there typically is an associated insurance policy with that. Now, I agree with Gabby, anything that we would do medically to go respond to something, we start charging, now next time they might not call and they might end up dying,
And along lines of that, as far as accidents or whatever goes, think about that too, from an insurance and a safety standpoint. If you say, well, hey, if you get in an accident, we're gonna charge you. Okay, it's possible, but also how many drive-offs are you gonna have? How many times are people gonna hit something and then be like, oh, I can't pay for it, I don't, whatever, and they're gonna take off and not report it.
oh, the short arm of the law will catch up to them.
Just some things to think about if that is, because I don't think that cost recovery is a bad option. It's definitely there, but it's a little bit more in depth. And as you guys said, you don't know all the things.
Yeah.
So, we're the people to ask.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the cost for recovery. I think it is with the varying standard of care. Because how do you choose just off of a number whether that person really needs it or doesn't? So in my view, from my background, you have to be in all or nothing. You can't say, I'm gonna charge you because you called me more times, but I'm not gonna charge you because you're only calling once. I think it's the standard of care. You have to look at.
I just, on
Yeah,
that,
actually,
I need to bring up a legal point on that. Per the state law, we have a duty to act because we have a medical license, so I would check with the lawyer before you make decisions on refusing to go on a 911 dispatch call. There is legal requirements that have to be met for that. It's called duty to act. I don't have the MCL or which compiled law it's under, but it's there. We just gotta find it. So I would check with the lawyer before we start
Yeah.
choosing to not go or not go, depending on what dispatch tells us.
and that's,
That's-
yeah,
You will.
you will go,
They are
but
just gonna get-
so,
It's very.
Steve's got
hard.
it, too.
let's go, electronic.
Before it completely falls out of my brain, I want to step back on something.
You're 1 fathom deep. You sound like you're underwater.
I know.
Okay,
Well, I want to go back to one thing that Abby had said earlier, and I thought it was spot on. We need to, beyond the fire committee, we need to tell people what if we don't do this, this, and this, these options do exist. And if we need to, for example, go to a full volunteer fire department because we simply don't have the funds to operate, there are serious consequences to that. And I believe maybe it was Chris that had said something like, we just expect fire trucks to show up, or we just expect ambulances to show up, or police cars to show up. They show up because we pay for those privileges. And so somewhere along the line, as Abby had indicated, we need to educate the people better, because they're still pinned down on certain arbitrary things. And we really do need to do a better job. The guys that are going out and going door by door are getting that message out, but we need to get it out, I guess more in a broader base.
She just wants to
Just really
comment.
quick. So along the same lines of that, think about this past summer and all the issues that have happened at the hospital. Another great analogy, people were furious, still are furious, that the wait time in the ER is out of control, right? So if you present it as,
point of
The ERs
clarification, was it just this summer?
well,
It
Sorry,
was bad.
sorry, I had to.
right, but I mean, people actually were, but people were, publicly commenting on it. This is a problem. This is ridiculous. I can go, I have to drive, but I can get in. I could drive to Gaylord and still get in sooner than if I sat in the ER here. Okay, nothing against the hospital. It is what it is, right? But that's another way to look at this. If you don't like the wait time at the hospital, now you might as well add on the wait time for the ambulance to get there, or for the fire truck to get there, or whatever, because if we don't have the service, who's gonna come put your fire out? You're gonna walk yourself to the hospital with your burned arm? I mean, that's really the big picture of it. You don't wanna wait. Well, we have to have the service then.
Well, and so that we're talking about elephants, and I'm glad that we are, because if we want to educate, then do we need to sit down and look at what that potential contract was back in November with chief and say, this is what it laid out, and with a dispel? I mean,
I think
I know nobody really wants to talk about, yeah.
I don't have a problem talking about it. I'll tell you exactly how I feel. Right, right.
So,
We beat everybody over there for so long, and we tell them that the city can do everything for less money than what we're paying now. And that was obviously not.
Nobody can hear you.
yeah,
Because you gotta get up to the.
yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, we can't even come to an agreement on a water authority. So I don't know if you think it's gonna work on a fire authority or some type of partnership, you're out of your mind. And I'm not gonna jump in bed with somebody that I can't trust.
Like I said, in this room,
Get the
we
elephants out.
beat the public over the head with saying that the city could provide all this service for less money than what the millage is providing right now. And that was obviously not the case. And
I honestly, I don't think, Mr. Jones, we can say obviously, because we're talking about the educational deficiency. So where is, I mean, I'm talking about this in a way to educate and dispel.
But I think we're beating a dead horse. I know what you're saying.
Right, but I mean, even as a committee, we tried to.
Well,
do
that's
the
what we're saying. We
outlaw-
The
need to,
people voted against. So that's a conundrum we have to openly and honestly look at with a realistic point of view. Okay, I understand. 2 years ago, that failed by a vote. We also have to be real about the fact over the past year and half, 2 years, we've done leaps and bounds, bringing in new staff, doing a lot of positive things. We still don't have a structure. And if the foundation is us, do you want us telling you this is, because we've had those conversations and it didn't go well. So where do we find the happy medium of
it's, well,
what is our service?
first off, we've got the issue of funding. I would like to build the hierarchy and the foundation of our side of the wall and know that we have a strong
And
foundation.
I would
no
say,
way.
quit saying our side of it, because.
That just
we're building the
perpetuates.
township and it's-
No, you're absolutely correct. I should have.
We're building walls when we say that.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. But as far as me beyond me as your chief trying to build a hierarchy, so we have a chain of command to follow that we know when I come over here, I've got a solid base, if you will. That's backing me as your township fire chief, and I will give you an end product that this board can be proud of. In my opinion.
Couple of things I had was, I've referenced this quite a few times.
Hold up, actually.
Did you ever know it's on?
You got a little clammy?
I got progressives. So whether you, not you withstanding, whether you think the jail is an elephant, if you think the jail is not worth the money and too much money and it's not in the right place, or the landscaping isn't good enough, or all the things that I've heard. The one thing I've told people over and over again is the sheriff got way ahead of the public vote with information, went to, I don't know what all he went to, Boy Scout meetings, church groups, all kinds of civic organizations, and go, the jail's in trouble, the building's about to fall down, and he got way ahead. If the jail millage doesn't pass, it's not Kelishewski's fault. Because he, in my mind, that guy did everything he could to inform the public about the need of the jail. And I don't see that as being, my opinion, is we haven't come close to educating and informing and being ahead, because we don't have a plan. We don't have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. It's not communicated in board meetings. We talk about the issues, but we don't really have a substantive plan that says this is where we'd like to be and this is how we're going to accomplish it. And then, like, I don't get the LP in the news, but I don't know, maybe I'm missing it.
I think we're right back to where Norm always says,
What's the
what's
plan?
the plan? So Norm's not here, what's the plan?
right.
And so here's
Right,
the
so
other
we still
thing.
don't know what the plan is, but
Yeah,
we're
we
trying to
did
get something.
all
in.
those town hall meetings.
Yeah.
Barely anybody showed up.
Yeah, but
We're here at a workshop open to the public.
uh,
And that's very unfortunate that we don't have. more.
but that's
Well, we're gonna be having more because we need to, but this is a
that's
good
kind of a sidebar. The important part is for us, everybody, we're gonna get ahead because it's the right thing to do. It's the service that the public should have. Because fire and emergency services are, if you're not providing, if you've got the ability to pay, which I think we do, you have the largest tax base in the county. Maybe not after they added on to the hospital. You have the largest tax base of a government entity in Alpena County. But you're trying to cover, notwithstanding the fire department millage, you're trying to service 120 square miles or whatever it is, depending on which site you look at, 120 square miles with one mill. The city doesn't fund, but only 9 square miles with 18 plus mills. If you consider the ambulance fund, it might be
16.6
16.6 what?
mils.
No, it's 18 plus,
Yeah,
I would include the ambulance fund.
Yeah.
Which is maybe 20 or 21 if you start looking at the dollars that they're taking in both in revenue and in the ambulance fund. So just food for thought.
I kind of did, but I know, I think that we're like kind of just bantering back and forth, but let's set something to present to the public. What's the reason why we can't have a little blurb written off that Mark can read on the radio? We can do a news interview, you can put it in the newspaper. However, to get the word out, because I truly don't think that we collectively, all of us in this room, have put forth enough effort to get the word out so that people understand. I know the places where you guys went, the voting was positive, but what can we do right now before we leave this room to push this in a positive direction?
And the one bad, is that, and I love the idea, but based on our attorney's advice is that I don't have those conversations. So that really, this feels like Cash come over and put the handcuffs on me.
Can we delegate somebody else to do that? Myself included. Somebody, can we have a?
It can be a board member. I mean, you had several lists and were conflicted.
So I'm clear. The board, the members of the township board cannot publicly speak for or speak out in favor of this. Is that?
It was more complex than even I thought. I mean, the list of don'ts and Mark Chiefs has pages.
Okay.
I mean, so that's kind of just like he's. For me, when am I on my own time?
We're a salary.
I'm not. He's salary. So Chief knows.
I was pushing,
Yeah, he can answer
envelope.
that.
but I did everything according to what our attorney said I had the legal right to do. Volunteered my time, drove my own vehicle, dressed in my own clothes that I paid for.
Of what that document, they would be under the same auspices of that,
That would be true.
so they could still do the same exact thing.
Now, I don't know. I mean, I would have to look in here,
Yeah,
if it's anything different for
We'd look
elected
into it.
officials. I
It's,
don't know.
it's ridiculously long list of the don'ts.
Yeah.
So,
But the board as the township board cannot during a public meeting,
yeah, can
right out and say, we support this millage, we want this millage.
But if I wanted to go out on my own time and go knock doors,
we,
Okay.
I could or could not.
and I don't want to, he's
Nathan,
got the pages
Nathan.
printed out there.
Nathan, I want to talk just to you. Please do not take this in the incorrect manner because you want us to be us, right? I'm saying you want no more walls, no more nothing. With I just said, y'all could probably do some of this same stuff. You right away, bam, it's a no. And that was the impression. I'm saying, my perception is my perception. Sitting there, it was an automatic no. And I'm not alone in saying that's what we feel. Okay. I am here to support you. I have busted my butt over the last 2 years, went and got an EMT, waiting for my paramedic. Why? Because I believe in this community and I want to help this community the best I can. That means you included. So when we're all supposed to be trying to fight for this millage, I need you to go, let me think about this. How can I support this instead of an automatic, no, I can't.
And and I didn't mean it to be perceived that way.
Okay, but
What
that's
it
what I
is,
need,
what it
that's
is,
what I
what
need
it,
to
what
hear
it,
you
what it
say.
is I'm not gonna jump to a conclusion without having the exacts. That's it.
Okay.
So
that's not-
if I don't say hip hip hooray, I apologize,
I,
but I'm also not, if I don't know factually A or B,
okay,
I would rather be safe and wait for C to tell me what A
then
or B
say
is.
that, then say that.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
And I tried to several times. I said, Chiefs already has all the paperwork, but
That's
See,
saying
then-
Chief
then
has all the
I
paperwork. That's
did.
not saying
well,
that you're
'cause
going
it
to
came
do
from our lawyer.
this.
And
Okay.
so if I don't have that and say.
I just
can't,
have one,
Can't, that's all I. was saying.
Nathan, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Since we have now been involved in this for years, buddy, are you happy with the changes that you have seen in that department in the
Staffing,
last couple of years?
we've always had good staff. We have great staff.
I didn't say what it was. I said, are you happy with the changes that you have seen? Are there positive changes?
I see some positive changes.
Okay.
yes.
That-
I also see the fact that the conversation is, what is our mission? What is our foundation? How are we, because if we just rush to what my opinion is, there's 7 votes at this table. And so
I know,
I
I'm
see
sitting
the-
here
I
with
see
3
great
of them that said yes. I can't speak to the other ones. They're not here with that final
We
vote.
have one in
You-
mind.
Oh, but he was, hi, Steve, sorry.
Yeah.
Forgot. So I'm sitting here with the four yeses. So it's misfortunate that Russ left because then you are the only one who was the no vote. So really and truthfully, from the standpoint that I need you, when we say we need support, it's those kind of perceptions that we receive that maybe you don't know, maybe you just really and truthfully. And that's why I'm standing here taking the moment to say, Nathan, this is what it looks like to us, whether you meant it or not, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I've been told my face is horrible, and that was the blessing.
I didn't say that.
No, allow me to finish. Because even when I'm thinking positive things, I don't know if I'm just perpetually constipated, but I think about things.
But
Because I don't run to a conclusion and everybody's vote, because if we want to talk historically, you can say yes and no votes, but over a year of conversation and closed sessions, there were 7 people that were effectively in support of a contract with the city. And that's neither here nor there now.
it
But-
really
but-
is
but-
because
but then
we're not
but
privy
you're-
to that.
But you're
So
perpetually separating the yay to the nay. And so
Nathan,
my vote is my vote. I am happy
Yeah.
with what I see. I don't know how.
that is my question right
I
there.
already
That
did.
is really and truthfully all I wanted to hear from you is to say that
It's a very positive step in the right direction.
Thank
We
you.
have a lot more steps to take. most
Not saying we don't, not saying that we don't, but thank you.
I think a little step is that the last full-time person we hired finally got a unanimous vote. So I felt like that was a little win for us.
Sure, it's huge.
So I'm gonna jump on every little win we can get.
And I'm excited to be presenting another one to complete our 6th full-time position to be filled. But real quick, I think that, like you just said, there's a lot of work to be done. We know there's a lot of work to be done. We've accomplished a lot of work. I know some things don't happen as fast as I'd like them to, and I know they're not as fast as Michelle would like them to sometimes.
I don't have a lot of patience.
Because I get talked to regularly, but I try to do it as fast as I can, but I want to be as thorough as I can when I get it to you, if that's possible. But Nathan, you had also talked about this that we've got from the attorney. I just wanted to read it real quick. And an elected or appointed public official or employee or public body who, when acting in a public body, but is not his or her own, when not acting for a public body, but is on his or her own personal time, is expressing his or own personal views, expending his or personal funds, or providing his or her personal volunteer services. So that's some legal mumbo jumbo, but any member of this board, according to this, that the attorney highlighted right up here, could do that. I mean, you could help us when that task. I know trustee Kroll had mentioned to me that he would like to go out and bang on some doors with us when we go. So I would love to have anybody that's willing to go out and do that.
Then come up,
Yeah, looking for a felon, just trying to get one on the
why
day.
don't you come up with a schedule and share it every, whatever.
We just
mean,
established a schedule
because-
last night,
If we don't know, we can't.
but I will,
Do it.
tomorrow I will send you, I'll send the entire board a note that we will be out canvassing on such and such a date. So we're going to be meeting here at
But
this.
I don't even know how it works. Do you go to no, so 4, 6, 10 people go. Do you all split out to different areas or
Oh, yeah.
the same area and 2 people per door
So,
or 1 per door? Well,
I
that's
gotta
what-
tell you how huge it would be for board members to be involved with this. I kid you not. They're amazed that when I knock on their door and I introduce myself, I'm their township fire chief. Oh my God, what are you doing out here? Well, this is important to me and to
Well,
our
we
area.
went to my mom and dad's house and my dad, yep, he was here.
Okay. That being said, any help that we can get from the board,
And
you
then
know,
conversely, any help that we can get to you through this that's why we have this
Right.
meeting, where we're gonna have more of these, because how can we strengthen that approach? Obviously,
Communication.
the first option is the millage is already on a ballot.
Mhm.
That's where we're at. We're having conversations because I don't like to have all eggs in one basket. That doesn't mean that it's far fetched off to the far right. It just may look different. That's why I'm saying, what are our internals? What are our externals? What are the hybrids? And if we need to look at the educational component and pull out the city contract and dispel it, that's one way to educate. Yeah, I remember a conversation you and I had too.
Did Blaine have to say something? Who was up?
I remember other conversations we had too, Bev.
He was in line.
So,
I wanted to hear what he wanted to say.
He might have to say something.
Come on, Blaine.
Blaze.
Blaze, Blaine.
Well. Kind of going after Mr. Lappin a little bit, the reason an authority is not gonna be a solution for here is you can't obligate another township to abide by the authority, problem one. Problem two, who's gonna pay for the portion of it? You're the biggest township in the county, everybody knows it, you're 120 square miles. Who's footing the bill? The biggest township usually is gonna foot that bill more than a smaller township based on what money you have available. So there's your second problem with it. Then you have to look at who's gonna have the majority of the seats on that administrative board for it. Who's gonna own the equipment? Is it gonna be, so let's say we get Maple Ridge, Wilson, us, Sanborn, all get a nice little group. Who owns that equipment? Does each individual person maintain that? Do we accept the cost for our stuff and everybody still, does that route? If you can get people to work together, it might work at some point in the future, but it's not gonna work anywhere near 5-10 years. Because it's fire chiefs, sorry.
It's
my
ego.
sandbox and I'm not gonna,
It's
I'm not gonna
ego.
let you in my sandbox.
Simply put, it's egos.
Yeah,
It's not
and
immediate.
that's the thing.
Ours is bigger, ours is shinier.
It's
I
not
get it.
an immediate solution, but it's not something that may work for
Right.
the benefit of everybody in 5-10 years.
Right, and the county's made up of the city
Yeah.
and 8 townships.
Right, so
So,
the city's its own little.
right,
little gamble
to the
to
city.
We had ambulance, we had ambulance,
Mhm.
we could have transported.
You get paid.
Right?
Yeah, and we used to lose money.
For the non-emergency.
But so
transport.
why, Mr. Stevens, I would implore you not to get into the non.
In the past, regardless of our ambulance service, this has nothing to do with our transporting ambulance service. This is the 911 response to our citizens. We used to get, I believe the number was around $40,000.
We still get it.
We are still getting it?
Yes.
Awesome,
Look at your budget,
Oh, from the county?
$33,000.
awesome then. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they canceled.
I heard
They
it.
cut it out.
Yeah, it went away. I wanna
Yeah,
make sure.
no, I actually attended that meeting and fought for a higher rate because for first response out of the ambulance fund. Yeah.
Yep.
Attended that meeting and fought. I don't know, like, I know that besides my generically bad facial expressions. Tell me a vote that I haven't supported the fire department. Tell me the fact of hours of putting out, I got $43,000 in a grant. Not really utilized. I do things. I'm not opposed to it. I write grants. But again, so an authority to your,
It's-
it has a ton of complexity.
There's a lot of things that would go into it, and it's not something that's feasible, and some of it boils down to ego, but others boil down to financial.
Mhm.
If you don't have the money to fund it, you're just floating down the river without a paddle. And that's a problem with a lot of townships, and staffing plays into it too. Who's gonna staff it?
Funding is a big part of everything.
Yeah.
And economies of scale, if you could get outside. Steve, any parting words, trustee Lappin?
I just want to, I didn't say that an authority was the answer to everything. I said it was an option, and I still believe it is an option. There are many fire authorities in the state of Michigan. I've spoken to some. They absolutely can work. It is an economy of scale issue. that is a proximity to population issue. You could make that work. Is it time consuming? Absolutely. I've been in the municipal insurance business before I retired, 40 years. I insured 95% of the townships in the state of Michigan, and I can tell you absolutely that there are fiefdoms and they don't like somebody else to raise their child. I totally understand that. But there comes a time when children come of age and that they need to change things in the big picture. And so to say it won't work is inaccurate. It absolutely works. There's probably 20 of them at least in the state of Michigan. And so I don't think we should just simply rule things out. I think that we should discuss each one of them. I love the idea that you want to sort of open up the doors so that everybody understands certain things. That's great. But let's continue to keep an open mind because it's important. If we just shut down because in our own eyes it won't work, then that's going to throw question marks into anybody who listens to us. So with that, I do need to run. I've got 97 degrees and sunny, and I want to do some things that are more fun than what you guys are doing.
Yeah. We appreciate your
Thanks, Steve.
participation on vacation. I think we're getting to a point where we can probably look at what is our next date and just keep the conversation going. Because I thought this has been fruitful on both sides. Have a good one, Steve. So,
See you, Steve.
Blaze, you're still, I don't want to. Sorry, Blaine. It just comes so natural.
That's fine.
I
know we kicked the dead horse of the city a lot, but going out and actually asking people, hey, vote for this, vote for this. 9 times out of 10, that's what you hear. It's, they don't trust you guys, or they think that's the route you guys want to go. Your votes could show otherwise. I'm not going to dive into voting records. Quite frankly, I don't care.
Well, you should, if you're making the comments that you need support of
care to
everybody.
a point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and try and persuade Norm Foley to change his vote from a constant no or a constant yes. I'm not going to try and persuade you to change from a constant no to a constant yes. Fire service is naturally adaptive. We solve problems. That's what we do. That's what we're doing now. We've adapted to the budget issues we have. We're trying to find a solution for them. But the problem with even entertaining the notion of trying to talk with the cities, they can't staff themselves now. They're running 5-man crews, 7-man crews, and they're obligated to cover the county.
Well, and I just meant that in looking at the contract and dispelling the educational component.
Okay. So
And honestly, but we're representative of the public. So whether it's miscommunication, undereducation, whatever that function is, there's still people out there that, unbeknownst to all of us, still think that may be the best way. So that's how, if we need to break that apart and dispel, say, this is what you're getting for this, and
I think
use
that's a
that
great
as,
idea for the next meeting.
sit down and pick it apart.
Yeah.
That's why I brought that into
Apparently
play.
you were done, Blaine.
Papa Soros. So I just wanted to bring that back home is education, I think is the biggest thing we can hit all of our constituents, all of our public, all of our citizens in our township with is you say, what can you do to help? Come out with us. Come knock on doors on your own time. When you have nothing more to do on the board side, when you have nothing more to do in your job, on your free time, choose to come out with us, knock on doors and try to help educate.
Here, I will
Yeah.
be living and breathing here. I will not have a lot of my own time.
Help us educate these public in the facts of this contract, of how we were gonna lose services and how we were gonna lose this, or what it was gonna evolve into over the years with the increasing costs that without millage increasing, but the cost of, all these different talking points, we can walk through the contract. So we all are on the same page. So we're all giving out the same message.
Well,
But-
and maybe that, like I
Come
heard,
out and
maybe that's a topic at the next workshop,
Like
is
I heard.
going through it and saying, this is where it would have failed, this is where it would have failed. Maybe we can actually learn something from it. I don't know, but go through it. If it's an educational component, let's discuss it.
We need to have something concrete to provide. Like,
No, you're fine. You're.
But that's what I was saying when I was up here, before we leave, you know, otherwise we just sat here and talked for 2 hours.
Right.
We talked about some things, cool, but what are we doing?
Setting a date
Setting a date for what?
to talk again, have another workshop.
And in the meantime, what are we?
So
doing with
we're,
the public? That's what I'm saying.
one, this is a
Oh.
workshop. This isn't a meeting, so we can't take any board action.
We
So
don't need.
I'm just
we
saying,
don't
I'm
need
just saying,
board
structure. I know where you're coming from. but-
And not even, maybe not even you guys included, but what can we do tonight, tomorrow, the rest of this week, whatever, to be able to provide the information to the public that we're trying to get to them? Do we?
Encourage them
make
to
a
come to our
sheet? Do
next
we-
workshop meeting.
Okay,
I mean, that's one thing,
What message we want to send to the public?
right?
They might miss it.
I was like, ah, missed it.
but you see what I'm saying though?
Yep.
Otherwise, we're just sitting here, but like,
Right.
let's do something proactive, productive, let's do something. and not
So
just
do
talk
you,
about it.
do you have those flyers left over from the last time?
So we have 365. So out of 1,500 of the original Excel. So that's all we have left, but we don't have any more money to.
Is
does it-
IAFF
Do
participating?
they need
in-
to be tweaked a little bit from the?
But are they willing to do it again? Have you reached out to IAF? Because through negotiations. I know it was, I forget the gal's name. She took a different position. Yeah, Eileen Pettinger. So where is, I mean, is that a thing? Do we, at the next workshop, do we bring your representative from IAFF? What resources are you, I mean, you guys have been paying dues. What have you done for me lately? You know, kind of an attitude of getting them to actually bring forward money and other resources.
Actually, the same printing company that we paid to have them printed, they printed up all the special labels to be put on. The ones that were left over so we could have them properly.
Very nice.
So what did it cost? 1,500.
You remember the?
If you need the exact number, I can get you that.
Well, I mean, around, just
Yeah.
a general figure.
Were they 5 cents a piece, 10 cents a piece? Don't know.
I think the total bills for the flyers and the sign over $1,000. Yeah.
A lot.
Steve left.
I don't want to give you 3 minutes to issue the receipt.
You could ask people for donations if they want to help, say you could walk with us.
Yeah.
Any public. Board, any-
Chef is doing a chili cook-off to get to know your firemen and donations.
There you go.
Sounds like Haley's making chili.
How many beans are in it? That's all I want to know.
I mean, it's probably not a bad idea.
So-
But I think
But-
that money's going to.
Yeah, they're about.
So,
Did y'all get the actual?
Thank you. Well, these are a nice paper. Did Allegra do these? I used to.
So we had the Allegra donated stickers to put back on it though.
Where are the stickers? Over here.
We haven't got these. Yeah, November 8th, general election, November 8th. This is November 8th. though.
what?
We did, I think. I
What
talked
is it?
on the type on email.
Is it November 8th? I
Yeah.
wondered when the election was.
November 8th.
November 8th.
Can't.
You said November 7th. earlier.
So when I say we can't, I don't want that to come off in a negative way. Yes. So, okay, before this city function gets out of control, Blaine,
City,
Are-
wow, you called me Blaine.
I know, well,
Did I die?
You've
Blaine,
earned the
Blaine,
respect.
I do apologize. And it was, it was actually an accidental, wonderful nickname.
It's okay. It was funny when I logged in.
Cause I was like, Blaine, I was like, send your email.
Yeah.
Like, mine's all man.
Fine. Hey, he crushes it.
Anyway,
You should be modeling yourself after his work ethic. He crushes it. Bam.
I'm gonna take that shot and just let it go, because I'm gonna move to go back and forth with you on shots, but we'll go that route later. You know, there's ideas from both sides. you know, you guys need to work with us, we need to work with you, like, we get that. But at the same token, you know, kind of tagging in off of what Bev said, don't say no. You know, don't just put up a wall. If you want to tear down walls, let's do it. You know, you can go with us, you can go with me, I don't care. You can ride in the big red ding ding. You can go with us. I'll walk with you. I don't care. You know, that's something that you can do off your time. It's not anywhere in that paper. That's why I was reading it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says you can't do it. Now you can't do it on the clock and you can't do it, but that's fine. But you can still do it in your off time. Look at it as a donation.
I hear you loud and clear, and I also look at my free time as one of the most valuable
It is.
assets with a 3-year-old.
It is.
So, and
I have a
but-
5-year-old.
I know, I'm not trying to make excuse.
I have
Everything.
Everybody's
that
time.
I've lost a lot of free time with. So we.
Oh,
we
yeah,
can
bring
compare
him.
those.
You'll get all kinds of
I
bugs.
would say.
Yeah.
Door, I had well over $100 in,
Yeah.
just.
So I've lost free time with my 5-year-old too, so I understand where you're coming from with that, and free time is valuable. But on the same token, being able to balance it with something that you care about is really where it's at, and that's kind of why I did it. I almost brought her with me. I told him, she's going with me. If I have her, she'll go with me. I don't care.
Yeah, pull around in a wagon even.
Might get the sympathy vote.
We actually had
Might work.
a pretty good time when we figured
So-
out. with everybody.
Yeah, but.
Yeah.
You know, to kind of paint a picture of what it's gonna look like if it fails though. It takes me 15 minutes to go from this station here to El Cajon Beach Road. And that's even going ding ding. It's a long drive. It takes me 7 minutes to go to French and Webster from Southside. So now you're expecting me to go all the way up to County Line from Southside if we have to close the station. Not saying you're expecting, but
I
if
didn't know where you're
if
going
it,
with
if it
that.
shuts down, you're gonna have to brown one out or the other because the majority of the calls are in South. We're over 500 up here's pushing 420, 430. It,
Southside's by far the busiest
You know,
station. We
that's
know
where
some
all
of
your
those
people are.
factors.
so
And-
you're putting everybody up here at risk if we can't say, hey, this is what's gonna happen if we don't do this.
About anchor being that south.
I heard that story.
Yeah,
Now you want to open one station, we'll say Southside because it's the busiest, but now again, you're gonna get that same. part of-
but
I
we're,
just want to say that this, we're not saying we want to
No,
do
I,
this.
I think.
But that's what
you
we
understand
do.
what I mean.
No,
Right.
no, we want, I personally want the millage to pass. So that we're not closing or limiting hours.
Yeah.
But these are the things that the public needs to be made
Right.
aware of.
Right.
If this fails, this is the reality of what we're looking at, and it's not simply somebody else is gonna pick up our slack. That's not true. It can't happen. So the reality is, your lives are at risk, your structures are at risk, whatever, however you present it, but instead of just saying, well, you know, some things might get caught or some things might change, I think just a straightforward approach, this is the truth of what's gonna happen. These are the most likely possibilities. And one being, if we close down the station, an entire permit,
Yeah.
the township is gonna be our.
And then another thing to kind of piggyback on top of that, if you, not you, I say you in a broad term. If it fails, you're going to look at possibly going to a volunteer department or paid on calls fully, because there's no money to, sorry, I'm not gonna work for free. I'll volunteer my time and, you know, paid on call, whatever, but as a full-time employee, I'm not doing it for free. You know, you got bills, I got bills, he's got bills, we all got bills. And you could paint it and say, look, if that fire we had today on Long Rapid is a prime example. That guy's fire up on US 23 North is a very prime example. Average response time from home, depending on where they're at for volunteers nationwide, is anywhere between 7 to 10 minutes. And that's not including getting in the ding ding, going to where you gotta go. So you're looking 15, 20 minutes, that guy on 60 something 123 North, 20 minutes more, his house be gone too.
Yeah, the house was, you know,
So now you're looking at a whole bigger problem. You have to paint the photo, say, look, we have pros we can get if it passes. But these are all the negatives if it don't.
yeah.
And being able to go out and, you know, let's say you don't know me. Hey, Blaine, here's the problem. Here's what happens if we can't get it passed. Here's what happens if we can. Shit, I'm gonna go with option B. I'm not gonna pick option A. Because option B is gonna save me money on my ISO ratings, gonna save me money on my insurance, gonna save me money in general. Plus, now I have a truck that's at most 15 minutes to the farthest corner over that way, and it only takes me 10 minutes to get to the North line. I have a 10-minute response time from here. And most of your staff here, you're paid on calls and you're full-time, to kind of give you a pride note on it, we average at night about a 2-minute jump time total. From the time it goes off to the time we're in the truck and that truck's out the door. The only time we've had a problem is when this door over here doesn't want to cooperate. So it takes it a minute,
Let's prioritize the needs.
you know, so it happens. But that's a source of pride here. You know, we beat the city half the time. I'm not knocking them. They're, you know, I get along with them. But
Yeah, I know.
We beat them half the time anywhere north of what, golf course? Hell, Long Rapids, anywhere north of Long Rapids, 9 times out of 10, I'm beating the city to Metalodge. Beating the city anywhere on Golf Course Road, anywhere on Genshaw, anywhere north of there, we're beating them. Walmart. And it's not all their fault. They're just that short staffed that they can't always be there. So painting that picture and saying, look, having that response from your department that's there is a very big selling point.
And
Go ahead.
and the departments around us actually benefit from us having a full-time department. Just the other day, we were requested for mutual aid to Wilson. And our truck actually was the first truck on scene. Out on Worth Road by the golf course.
I don't think it was unseen.
Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah. But that's,
Suds it up, brother.
but that's the point is because we had people at the station. A staffed manned station. That was able to respond for mutual aid for a mutual aid request for another department. They were actually able to beat. The originating department's members coming from home, going to their fire
Right,
station,
grab
getting their
their
trucks
truck.
and responding.
Was that south side that? went
Yes.
That way, yeah.
Yeah,
I just
Yeah, because they're not at their station.
Was that the emergency dispatch center, and I was second.
yeah. So that's just another bonus and added benefit to the township having a full-time staff department.
And Laura, that's the point of the exactly, they're not at the station. So if we don't have the millage, if we can't find them, or if you don't call volunteer, however you want to look at it, you're not at the station.
Mhm.
So we're coming from a distance to get our equipment to go a distance.
The other thing there is that
I think we're gonna wrap this up pretty quick, right? The other thing that we look at, we're 1,000+ runs here. A lot of these departments, they may be lucky that they're running 100, 200 calls a year tops. That would be a huge ask to have a volunteer crew continue that run call volume at 1,000+ calls. I just, number one, I think you'd have complete and total burnout or just a complete lack of response at a certain point. Because if everybody's working full-time jobs, it's gonna be easy to turn that button off on February 12th when it's 30 below zero. Because you're getting what? That's just my thought.
No, that's a good point. Another thing you gotta look at too is if it does fail. You run the risk of problems, you know, and with the charging people for lift assist. I came out of Iosco County and we were able to bill Medicare and Medicaid. We had a billing system in place, we had a collections, whole 9 yards, it was all through third-party system. The problem with that though is people still paid a millage for the EMS ambulance, and now I'm billing them on top of what they already paid in their tax rate.
Mhm.
That's a hard thing to ask, and it's not your guys' fault or problem. It's just a problem. It's hard to say, yeah, hey, I'm gonna charge you this tax rate. Oh, well, on top of that, now I'm charging you $1,000 for an ALS transfer, but wait, there's more. You have additionals, vents, blood, this, that, $5,000-$10,000. You fly somebody out of Thomas Hospital, 50 grand as soon as that motor starts, at least. And now they're having to foot that plus their tax. It's a hard thing to ask somebody. So
It is.
That's not a
And we're not rare as a municipality in that regard. We've, like I said, from 55 on. Why wasn't there an established millage? Why would, I mean, the what ifs, when you look at the minutes that show a continuation through decade after decade, and it's the exact same thing. That's the definition of insanity. So why not pop a pill and figure it out and just try to figure out whether it's a foundation, it's the board, or actually the interface with the fire department. What is our mission? Papa Bill, because we're Medicaid.
I'm like, don't.
Sorry, it was too quick.
Anybody else have anything?
Oh, Michelle, oh, yeah, yeah, that's.
So we're gonna be having more of
Yeah.
these. It was a conversation, but it was fruitful for the board members that are here. Because what does it look like? And do we need to dispel and help an educational component? I think that's the biggest thing. For the past 2 years, the education is paramount.
I just have a question. I know everyone here except for the gentleman in the back corner. Are you a paid on call or
He is our paid on call trainee. Will
Okay.
Brusso,
what is it?
Will Brusso.
Will Brusso.
Yep.
Got
And
rid of
he's
the
going to be,
handlebars. I
Nice
barely
to meet
recognize-
you. I'm Laura.
he'll be,
Nathan Cash.
starting
I just haven't
October,
met you.
starting October 1st, he will be in the fire academy at the college.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
here's,
well, I'm glad you're here.
and likewise, Bev will be. Yep. And, you know, I just want to say, thank you for having the open discussion. I think it was necessary. So that was a good
No.
move.
No,
I know you've been waiting to say that. But anyhow, we'll look forward to another talk. And I think it's, you know, everybody wants to probably get home at this point, but thank
Yeah.
you. And we'll keep pushing from our direction. And hopefully we can all meet in the same direction and go the right way.
are we setting up another meeting?
We can send it out.
Okay,
We have a board meeting.
oh,
This,
okay.
well, just tell everybody to bring their calendars for that meeting, which is this
Okay.
upcoming Monday.
And
Like
whenever
that's another-
schedule is done for the.
Yeah, I know. Even though it was
I
mentioned
know, I
in
had
an
to
email.
look at it.
So, with that, let's go through the protocols, shall we? Are there any, public comment online? This is the last opportunity for public comment. Seeing no online, participation in public comment, further discussion of the board. I think we've discussed quite a few things.
Great meeting.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion on the table to adjourn. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned at 8:03. Thank you very